Brian, hard at work.
Hello. Is it sound?
Yes.
Right, better watch what I say. This is a view of Dartmouth from the sea of Dartmouth Castle with a very old boat and lots of balloons. Nice bright colours. It's about half finished. All these colours have got lots of extra coats on, so this blue is being painted over 5 times to make it very bright. The same with the reds and the yellows, to make everything stand out.
So what inspired that picture, Brian?
This was painted following a big draw session with some children at Dartmouth Castle when we all sat down and painted the area. And it was such a beautiful area, I thought it looked nice from the sea, so this view is from the sea. A made-up view taken from some photographs to get the church and the castle, but really making up this view. It wasn't painted from the boat, I wasn't sitting in a boat or doing anything. I think that's the great thing as a painter. You can make things up. You can imagine what it looked like. Obviously there weren't all these balloons there that day. They're things I put in to brighten the picture up. And this is a very old boat that was famous in the Dart many years ago that I thought would look nice. So picture made up from little bits that are accurate, and lots of others that are put in.
And is that your first copy of that print?
This one, yes. There's this. I'm painting 2 similar pictures, and I'm not deciding quite which one I'm going to prefer. But the idea is that this one's got a bit of a different wave pattern, and the first one you looked at shows more of the estuary mouth, with the landfill, the land on the other side. And I think I'm going to prefer this one. It works a little bit better for me. I like this extra bit of green on the one side. So this will probably be the major picture. But what I'm doing is experimenting with that one, and then if I'm happy with it, putting it onto this one. Both of them will be finished off eventually, but this will be the one that's probably used for a calendar or a print or anything like that.
So how long will it take from start to finish to do a picture like this?
This takes about 40 hours. The background's painted first. This canvas was painted totally blue to start with. There was no detail put on the picture, it was painted blue. Then the green was put in for the land masses, then the other detail put on top.
So it's layers of paint really, isn't it?
Yes, if I'm painting something like the Hoe, this is just a little picture starting for the Hoe, you will see that it has the sea and the sky of the same colour and the green of the Hoe. So the background's painted before any details put on, and then the picture slowly built up.
So Brian, what sort of paintings do you normally like to paint?
Local scenes and seascapes. I mean, I'm very interested in the local landscape. Some of my paintings are further away, London, Tuscany, France, but the majority of the stuff is quite local. This is a typical example. You've seen the Dartmouth one. This is a view, a made-up view again, looking to Mount Edgecombe, with Mount Edgecombe House and the Edgecombe Arms pub, with lots of colour and flowers and rooftops. This is a very typical scene you get in the southwest, in the villages, is looking across these lovely rooftops to the sea. And what I like about this picture is the patterns of the balloons and the patterns of the waves and the patterns of the flowers.
Yeah.
And then you get the straight edges of the rooftops and the man-made building interfering with the curves of nature, which I find interesting. I often put myself in the picture if you look very closely, and I might be in the window like I am here with my easel painting, or sometimes I'm with my wife embracing, where you might see me because I'd be the only person with grey hair.
Just above the submarine.
And I'm thinking, yes, there I am, just up there. There's always usually a little black Scotty dog in the picture. You can see him here, called Hector, that I first painted a few years ago, and I often put him in the paintings. And in the snow scene ones, he's usually wearing some red Wellington boots to keep his feet warm and a red coat. And sometimes he has his name on the coat, or initial H for Hector. Again, these sunflowers have been overpainted 6 or 7 times to get the intensity of the colour.
Do you always sign your work as well?
Yes, it's always signed, always on the front, sometimes on the back as well, with some kind of reference to the painting. It's always signed on the front. These are painted in acrylic paints, so they're water-soluble paints.
Okay, and that's in tubes like this.
Yeah, they're not oil paints, so you can wash your brushes with water, which is very, very useful. And it's quick drying, the picture will dry within 20 minutes. I paint things very flat, except the clouds. The clouds are the only ones that use a textured paint. And if you look carefully at the clouds, you'll see that the paint's thicker. And it stands out to give that extra fluffiness.
If I can get that. Ah, yeah.
If the children look very closely at the buildings, they'll see there's things I miss off. I'll leave them to pick those out. Certain things I don't normally put into pictures because it spoils the shape or the pattern. And I think that's the great thing, as a painter you can put things in or miss things out, whatever you like. There's no hard or fast rules how you paint. The idea of these pictures is to make them bright, cheerful and colourful. And that's the idea of putting the balloons in the sky. Sometimes I might put the red arrows, some aeroplanes to brighten things up. So anything that makes the picture bright and cheerful.
So Brian, what inspired you to start painting in the first place?
Well, I work as a doctor, so this isn't my only job, and I still work 2 days a week as a family doctor. And the idea of painting was to start relaxing, to turn off, because I find painting is a very relaxing process. You can forget things, you can get carried away to a different area. And the idea that you could actually create a world that was pleasant and cheerful and bright and colourful was very appealing. So really it was a form of relaxation. And it started about 20 years ago. I've been painting regularly ever since then. I paint for several days each week, most weeks, and I probably produce 3 or 4 paintings a month, but not of this size. Often they're much smaller pictures.
Okay, who inspires you in your painting? Or what inspires you?
Well, the landscape inspires me because I think as a painter, and I think that's what makes painters different, is they tend to look at things in more detail. I think we're surrounded by the most beautiful landscape around here, which is very inspiring. I like colours, so I like painters that use bright colours. Van Gogh, Matisse, people like that inspired me. A lot of the paintings say they have a Lowry feel about them, but that's just the style. That this style of painting is called naive, and a lot of people paint figures in this way. The difference being with Lowry, that Lowry's scenes are rather depressing, the northern scenes of Mills. And these are quite clearly bright, cheerful scenes. People talk about Beryl Cook, again because she's a naive painter, but Beryl is very much interested in the person, and they totally dominate the paintings. I'm not interested in the person, they're incidental, they don't have any faces, they just again happen to be in the picture.
Yes, and that's shown over here very clearly. No faces, no features. Once again over here. Oh, can you spot Brian again?
Is the dog there?
Oh, and the dog. Yeah. You have supplies and materials that you use. If children wanted to be inspired or were inspired by your technique and your style, what would you recommend for them?
Well, I think you can paint on anything. As you can see, these are painted on what's called canvas or canvas board, which is what I use predominantly. But paper's fine as well. I've got some pictures here of simpler images that were just simply painted on paper. And you can see they still come out very bright and very cheerful. The clouds have been simplified more. There's no detail in the clouds. But you could put any of my pictures onto paper. I think again the important thing is to get the background in, get it nice and bright to start with. All these little figures are painted on afterwards. They're not sketched in, they're painted on, just quite simply. If you look at them, they're quite simply done. But when you stand back from the picture, you get the effect. So these are acrylic on paper. But again, I've overpainted them several times to get the brightness of the colour. They're not straight from the tube just once. There's again 5 coats of blue on that blue, and the same with the white.
Now, obviously at school we don't tend to have lots of stocks of acrylic, so what sort of paint could they use?
They tend to, the schools I've been to that have done the painting have just used them from the tubes, from the big squeezy bottles.
Yeah.
It's acrylic based, I think, but it's a simpler paint. So those are fine. What you have to be very careful with is that some of the blues are quite dark, and you do need a bright blue. So sometimes you need to lighten that blue a bit with white, because this blue is straight from the tube. This is the same blue that's been lightened by adding a bit of white. And this again is the same blue that's been darkened by adding some darker blue to it. You'll see that the sky and that colour are the same. So one of the colours is the same, but the others have been lightened and one colour's been darkened. So in fact, to get all those blues, you only need blue, white and a dark blue, and you'll get all those different shades of blue.
This is another of Brian's pictures on the Barbican. See the signpost there? Look in the windows. What can you see?
This is a picture of Plymouth that was commissioned for the council, that's used for schools, and it's a picture of Plymouth Sound. The post is called The World of the Difference, and that's because you can do anything you want as a painter, moving things around. And what I've moved here is that I've moved St Michael's Mount, which is a very famous landmark in Cornwall, into Plymouth Sound. It's not Drake's Island. You can see it's got a church on it, and Drake's Island doesn't have a church. And in fact, I never painted Drake's Island. So people look at that and think it is Drake's Island, but in fact it's St Michael's Mount. And the whole point being, if you want to put St Michael's Mount in Plymouth Sound, you can. You can do whatever you like with the composition.
I notice on this one you have a few more shades of the sea.
Yeah.
To the others.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3. There's sometimes 5. A lot of things are done in 3s and 5s because of balance. The cloud patterns are usually 3 or 5. Not always, because it doesn't quite fit in with the composition always.
Can you see Brian? There's a white Scotty as well in this one.
Unusual. Maybe there's some significance over that. Isn't there a black one in?
Yeah.
Just there is a little
black
one sitting
up.
down and the white one's
I can't see Brian though.
Ah. No. Yes, I'm in there on my own there, doing a bit of painting.
Oh yes.
Oh, I'm in there again as well.
Ah.
Nearly cut off. They've trimmed the picture.
It's a wonderful scene with lots of people.
The Scottish castle.
Very Christmassy or wintry. Brian, on this picture, the outline of the clouds are red. Can you tell us why that is?
But this is a picture that's painted at a slightly different time of day. It's that time at night when the sun's going down and the sky just starts to change colour. So the actual clouds begin to get a pink tinge, which you can see. The other thing that's happened is the sky is a different colour. If you compare it with the blues in the other picture, this is more a turquoisey blue. So I have often changed the sky colour as well as the cloud colour in a sunset or sunrise painting.
Great.
This is a picture again of St Michael's Mount in Mounts Bay, and you'll see on the right is an outline of the famous Cornish tin mines. So I often try and put a little reference to, say this is Cornwall or this is Plymouth, or locate the view, but it's mainly about St Michael's Mount and Mounts Bay.
And this is a picture of?
This is a picture of the River Dart, famous River Dart, looking up from Dartmouth, where the Riverlink ferry starts off and goes all the way up to Totnes, where you can see the castle on the left, on top of the green mound, and then behind the castle you can see Dartmoor and the Tors in the distance. So it's a view up the River Dart, showing some of the features, the train on the right hand side that goes along the Dart Valley. Ditcham Church on the left hand side, halfway up, which is a famous little village. Opposite Greenaway House on the right, which was the house of Agatha Christie. It's now owned by the National Trust. But this is an area that's walked well, there's good paths to walk, and I did a couple of paintings for them to use as plaques on the walk, from Greenway down to Kingswear on the right. If you look very carefully, you'll see me hidden away in various places and on a quay. I put in some of the older boats that the shipbuilders used to build, so you can see there's a little boat with a lighthouse on called a lightship, and those were boats that used to be built to put lighthouses out at sea, and Phillips and Son used to build these boats as well as some of the ferries. If you look very carefully in the church, in the foreground, you'll see there's some bats hanging down in the bell tower.
Oh, yeah.
Because this area has some lesser horseshoe-back bats, I think they are, which are quite famous, but they tend to be on the other side of the river. But thought it was nice to have a little bit of a reference to the bats, the famous bats.